Hi everyone, Evan Alexander here with another Vectorworks 3D quick tip. After I posted the extrude along path tutorial, I got a few emails from people asking how I was drawing these shapes and so quickly and so fluidly with all these curves. So I want to talk real quick about the Polyline tool because it's a great tool for drawing almost anything in 2D. And this, of course, helps us get into nice 3D. So let's jump in and take a look. I'm in top plan view, and I'm going to click on the Polyline tool. I'm going to make sure I'm in this first mode here, corner vertex mode. There are other modes, and I encourage you to explore these and try them out on your own. Today, we're just going to use the first mode. And if I just click and start doing different random points around here, it's just going to give me straight line segments until I come back to where I started, and then it will close the shape. So without doing anything, you can just use this kind of like the Polygon tool and just draw a bunch of straight segments around. So that's handy and good for just drawing shapes out really quickly. You even don't have to complete. If you just double click here, that will finish it off. And you'll notice, though, that it's an open shape, so just be careful about that if you're going to 3D. You can always check the closed button, and that will finish the line. But as good practice, you want to try to kind of get back to where you started and create a closed polygon right out of the gate. So I'm going to grab the tool again. I'm going to click. I'm going to click. Now this time, I'm going to click, and I'm going to hold the mouse button down, and I'm going to start to drag. Once I start dragging, I get into this curve mode, and you can actually let go of the mouse button, and this will remain live here. So I'm moving my mouse, but I don't have any buttons held down. And this is going to let me start to draw some kind of curve shapes. You can see some guides flashing on and off. And so if I click, and then I click again and drag. So you have to really get used to this. This takes a while. If you've used like the pen tool in Photoshop or Bezier stuff in Illustrator, it's really the same principle, but you don't have the same kind of handle and control handles. So it just takes a little bit to get used to it. You have to play around with this one at first. Once we have our shape drawn, if we double click on it, it's going to automatically launch for us the Reshape tool, the 2D Reshape tool. And so then you can see we get a series of handles. So we have our points that we dropped, but then in between the points that we dropped, we have these like control handles. And again, the Reshape tool has multiple modes to explore, but we're just going to stay in this move polygon handle mode here. And you can see that if I click this and I start to move it, then I can reshape these curves or these like kind of major points along the way, and then you can start to kind of control. And like I say, it really just takes kind of practice of getting used to this. Inevitably, you'll get a job where you have to trace off 10,000 pieces of molding, and then you'll get really good at it on 1 gig, which is kind of great. So let's look at kind of a real world example. Drawing these blob shapes is great, but now we want to draw something real. So let's import a piece of molding. Here's a PDF. This is just a little crown molding that I found. Import. So here it is. You don't have to do this, but one thing I like to do is lower the opacity of this. So it's pretty dark, so it's hard to see what I'm drawing. So right here in the attributes, I'm just going to click on this, and let's lower this down to like 35%. So it's just kind of ghosted in there. And now here's the real trick with this tool. Do not try to get it perfect as you're drawing it, because you won't be able to do it, and it'll just make you angry. Throw the mouse against the wall. So the idea is to rough it in and then go back and clean it up. You're really just trying to get the points in the right spot. Okay, so I'm going to start right here, and also I'm going to draw this, and then I'll go back and I'll scale the geometry that we've made to the correct size. So I'm not worrying yet about scale. It's easier, I think, for me to scale the Vectorworks geometry than this PDF import. You could go either way, though. So I'm going to start right here on a nice logical corner. Also notice I'm using a full screen cursor. I find it for stuff like this makes it really easy, but totally up to you. Not necessary. So then I'll click here. So now I know that this is going to kind of belly down and curve away. So I have to, basically you have to think about overshooting the direction of the curve that you want. And then because we've got a curve going this way and then a curve going the other way, there should be some kind of transition point, like, you know, basically right here in the middle. So, and again, it doesn't have to be perfect. So, so I know the curve's going this way, so I'm going to kind of overshoot it, click and drag and pull down. And I'm off, and that's okay, because really we're just trying to get the major points and the kind of general flow and vibe of this in place here. I've gone a little too far. It's okay. And then we'll click again, and then here's another kind of downward curve. So I'm going to come over. I'm going to line up with the bottom of this, click, and I'm going to drag down. And we'll just get it close. Like I say, it doesn't need to be perfect. And we'll come back up here, and we'll just finish this shape off. Okay. So now we have it kind of laid in. You can see that it's off, right? This curve is going up too high. This one, if we hit the B key for X-ray mode, you can see this one's way off down here. But that's okay. If you try to get it perfect right out of the gate, you'll just get frustrated. So now we double click on this, and you can see we're in the Reshape tool in this first mode again. And so now I have these, you know, all these handles that I can modify. So we have our major handles here, which I can just grab and move if I want to. So for example, if I had missed the mark on that, I could change that this way. Or if I needed to make this taller, I can hold Shift, kind of lock in this alignment. But this is okay. What we really care about are these curves. So you can see here in between this major handle and this major handle, there is this kind of floating Bezier handle. And so by grabbing this, I can now move this in and kind of get it to line up the way that we want. Now you can see here, see how it's kind of popping a little bit? So snapping is kind of trying to help you here, but really getting in your way. You can see all these tangent lines it keeps snapping to. If I hold down the tilde key, which is in the upper left of your keyboard, right below the escape key, that's going to temporarily suspend snapping while I hold it. And so I'll be able to kind of move this right exactly where we want it and then click again to let go. We'll do that again here. I'm going to grab this. Now I'm going to hold down the B key. And when I do that, I'm in X-ray mode. I'm still holding the B key, but I'm manipulating this. I'm going to hold the tilde key at the same time. So I'm in X-ray mode and I'm going to suspend snapping. And you can see here, right, you can really kind of control where the belly of this curve is based on kind of where you draw. So you got to kind of come in here and just get it to kind of feel right. Make sure you have a nice smooth transition here. Let's do it one more time here. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to suspend snapping and move it down and say, okay, so that's in place. So that's great. And we can move this off to the side. And here it is. Now I know that this piece of molding is, you know, 3.5 inches tall. So let's say here, we'll grab a line here. And we're going to say duplicate, Command D. And we're going to move this up, what? 3.5 inches. Wow, we really drew this piece of molding enormous. And then we'll just go to the Reshape tool here, and let's make sure are we lined up here? We are lined up. Grab the top. I'm going to hold Shift and just scale this guy down. Again, don't get it perfect, get it close. The trick here is to make sure when you're scaling that you're holding Shift so that it's proportionately scaling. And now I've got this at, you know, 3.5 inches, which is great. If I didn't want to do it that way, if I wanted to fix this first, all I have to do once I imported it is say model scale objects. And so here you can say, okay, symmetrical by distance, the current distance is. And so you click on this little dimension. And so now what it's asking you to do is to define the size that you want to kind of measure or that you know. So we know the height is 3.5 inches. So again, this is where that full screen cursor really comes in handy. So I'm going to line it up there and click. So it's actually 9 feet 11 inches tall upon import. Our new distance, 3.5 inches. That's just there because I had already typed it in. And I'm going to say, okay. And now you can see that this is now actually in scale. And then again, we could come in and, trace it off. And, when I'm really working, once you get used to it, you can kind of do this really quickly. And then, you just have to do it and do it and do it and do it. And then you won't really think about it anymore. It just becomes kind of second nature. So, have a go at it, play around with it. It can really help, especially with molding, particularly with molding. It's just, really invaluable tool. If you're trying to draw arcs and compose them and, make this out of all these different segments, it's just going to, kind of slow you down too much. So I think this is probably something here is a little funky. I want to line up with this. Get it nice and square at the top. And there you go. So there's our piece of molding that we can go with. All right, so play around with it. It takes a little while. Don't break your mouse, and we'll see you in the next tutorial. Thanks very much.